All right. So the new session is in Learn Clinical Sessions. So that's pretty much where all the other sessions have been. You're going to see everything that you've already got right in here. And then this is also where you're going to go to add a new session, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at one that we've already got. So here we're going to go into Steve's session. By default, it is going to go into what we are calling the old session view. And this is the view that is going to go away in a couple of months, actually in about a month or so. And what you're going to see here, we're just going to go over a little bit of what this looks like so that we can look at what is going to be different. So what is going to be the same, what's going to be different in the new session. So over here on the left, you're going to see your index view. You're going to be able to change your views. So if you have some items that are in the trial view, in the net view, the routine view, all of that good stuff, that is all up at the top. And then, of course, down below are where all of your targets are. Okay, so if we went to our net view, which is where probably most of your targets currently are, you're going to be able to see them here and scroll up and down. Okay, and then, of course, you do have your timer up here at the top. What you're also going to see, it's collapsed for me right now, but on the right-hand side is the pinned view. Let's go ahead and open that. And it is going to show you anything that you do currently have in your pinned view. So typically, we do see those behaviors, so behaviors for reduction, but of course you can put anything in here that you need to access very, very quickly. All right, then we're going to now, then we're going to jump in now to what we call right now the session beta. And this is going to become the default session view. Okay, so for those of you that have not had a chance to practice this while it was in beta, we are going to take a look at what some of these features do, how to add, take away trials, how to graph, all of that good stuff. So we're just going to start by kind of seeing, looking at what we see when we first come in. So on the left-hand side, this looks very similar to the old view. So you're going to have your index view. All of these guys down here are everything that are currently in the session, so anything that you can take data on. One thing that has changed right here is the timer. So if you remember from just a minute ago, the timer was in the center, and now it's over on the side. Okay, in the center, this little area right here is very much the same. So all of the targets that are currently on the session in the net view in this case are going to appear right here in the center. The left-hand side, I'm sorry, the right-hand side is different in that it doesn't contain the pinned view. This is actually our metrics tab. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Our pinned view is down here at the bottom. And for me, mine opens automatically, but what you guys might see is something that looks like this. So it's going to be a little blue button down at the bottom of your screen, and it's going to have a little push pin icon next to it. When you click on that, it's going to bring up your little pinned area, and you can then scroll through and take any data on those behaviors that you might need. I am doing this webinar on a pretty big screen, so you're going to see a lot of real estate. As you're doing it on the smaller screens, you're going to see a lot of overlay. And we will take a look at what those smaller areas are going to look like a little bit later. But as you are going through, you can collapse some of these sides if you'd like to. So let's say you don't need to see your index view on your tablet or on your phone. You're just going to hit the little icon right here. It says Hide Sidebar. It's a little arrow that's pointing to the left. Just click on that, and it's going to go ahead and collapse that for you. Okay, now what we're going to notice here is that the timer has jumped over here to the right-hand side. So you will always be able to see the timer as long as you have one of those side areas open. If we go ahead and close this one as well, then you're going to only see that middle section. Okay, so if we were to make this smaller, let's just say we're going to go ahead and do that. So I will minimize that a little bit. I'll bring it over just a tad so it's in the center. That's what it's going to look like on, it's close to what a tablet is going to look like that. I can make it a bit smaller, and that is going to mimic what you would see on a phone. So I made it just a bit smaller there, a bit like that. Let me go ahead and collapse this. So it's going to look just like that. So you'll be able to see all of that good stuff still. It'll all be right there in the center for you. And you can just hit these little horizontal bars, and it's going to bring on that overlay. So once your session is started, you're just going to hit that little button, and whenever you need to stop the timer. Okay, you can hit all of those buttons. So any questions so far about the look and feel of the new session? Yes, so the layout will be the same on the tablet. So it is going to look just like this. What I was showing you before when that was minimized, this is what that's going to look like on those smaller screens. Okay, good stuff. So now let me go ahead and open all of this back up. And what we're going to do is go ahead and start the timer, and we're going to start taking some data. So you always want to make sure that your timer is going before you start to take any data. But if for whatever reason, let's say you forget, so let's go ahead and pause that real quick. Let's say we want to go ahead and start doing folding shirt, and we're just going to start running it. So let's say the first one was an independent. You're going to get a nice little pop-up window that says, hey, you have not started your timer. And you say, oh, great. Thanks for reminding me. Let me go ahead and do that. So it's going to go ahead and start that timer on the right automatically. Okay, so you always want to make sure your hours, your minutes, your seconds are always ticking. Then you're going to go through and you're going to start interacting with your net view. So let's go ahead and just look at the first one. The first box that you're going to see is the one that you can see that it's lit up. So it's a little bit brighter than all of the other ones that are down below it. And this is saying the system understands that you are taking data on this particular target. Okay, so right now we're running the TA for folding shirt. I know it's a TA because first of all, I made it, but second of all, because it is going to tell you right here. So you're able to see what type of data collection method you're using for this particular target. So this one is a TA, but this one down here for Manding is actually % correct. Okay, so you're going to be able to see whatever that is going to be. You're also able to see the name of the target here in the center, and in this case, also what step we're on. If we're coming down here to look at that % correct one again, you're going to see what trial you're on. Okay, over on the right, you're going to see the current phase. So in this case, my folding shirt target is in maintenance, to where my Manding for ball is in baseline. What you're also going to see down below are any of the buttons that are going to go along with that data collection type. So in this case, because this is in maintenance and it is a TA, I have an independent, an error, and a no response. Same thing for baseline down here. Because it's % correct, it's either a check, so they either got it, or an X, they didn't. Okay, I do have one down here. This is a TA. It is in intervention, so you can see that right there. And this is also going to give me all the prompts that I need during my intervention phase. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so one of the questions is what determines what programs are part of the pinned bar? So you're going to do that in the edit section in your tree. So you would go back to your target in the client tree, and there's going to be a session view little drop-down area. It says net view by default, but if you click on it, there is an area there where you can select pinned view, and that is going to go ahead and put that right down here on the bottom. Let's see. And yes, the user does select what you want to see in the pinned view, absolutely. Yep. Okay. So now let's go ahead and start taking some data. So let's say we already did, for the first one, it was an independent. We can see that by either clicking on the little eyeball here, or you can click on this little tab right here. So this is going to go back a step, oops, or you're going to go forward a step, depending on what you want to see. Clicking on the eyeball is going to open it up and show you everything all at once. Okay, so you can see where you are, if you happen to have missed any steps, and then, of course, what you previously answered. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that real quick. I'm going to say for laying shirt down on table, that one was also a plus. Smooth out wrinkles maybe is a no response. We didn't do it. What you're going to see as we go along here and we progress through our steps is that there is a little bar here. So this is telling us how far along in the TA we are. You can see that right here, and you can also, of course, go to that little eyeball and see how many you've answered. Okay, so we can save folding right sleeve. He did that one. So you can see that that bar is progressing each time we give an answer. What you're also going to see here in the center is a running current data point value. So right now, if we were to graph this item, it would graph as a 60%. Okay, so let's say maybe the rest of these are independent. You're going to see that as it goes up, that number is going to change. So now we're at 71, 75, 78, and then by the end of it, he's at an 80%. Okay, so you're going to always be able to see what that current running item, the current running value, I should say, is. If you have something that has no maximum, so something that is maybe not a TA or not something that looks like this guy. So trial 1 of 5, that's a maximum. So I can only run this item 5 times. If I were to go through and do that, you're going to see that little slide bar there as well. It's gone ahead and tracked all 5 of my targets. But something like this doesn't have a maximum. So you're not going to get that error or that little bar, the slide bar down there at the bottom. Okay, but you will still get that current running score. So no matter what it is, no matter how many trials you run, you're always going to see what that happens to be. You can always come into your little eyeball and see how you're doing there. All right, let me take a look at some questions real quick. Yeah, so about editing, we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, good stuff. So now let's go ahead and do a couple more of these. We're going to say, let's also do folding of socks. I'm going to say that he did folding socks well, full physical there, partial, independent, full, and we'll just say that the rest of these are independent. Okay, so now we're ready to start to graph our items. So you're going to see over here in the metrics tab that there is a little icon down here that says graph target. Okay, so you can click this button in the instance of TAs, most typically, or anything that you want to graph immediately. So once you get done with the TA in the system, you do need to go ahead and graph it if you want to run it again. Otherwise, you can leave it and save it until the end. But if you did want to go ahead and graph it, let's go ahead and just go up to fold shirt. We're going to say graph target. It's going to turn green, like we just saw a minute ago, saying that the item was graphed and that the item, in this case, has been removed because of my maintenance criteria. So it went ahead and pulled it off. But if you do have the criteria, that's going to go ahead and count for that. So we wanted to do, let's do ball. So manding for ball, this one's in baseline. I'm going to go ahead and graph my target. It's going to turn green. There's that green color right there, signifying that that has already been graphed. If you need to run it again, that's fine. Go ahead and keep doing it. That'll give you another data point. But if you're done with it, you don't need to worry about regraphing it or accidentally graphing it twice. The system is going to tell you that you've already done that. The other thing that you can do, let's do a couple of these real quick. So let's start my timer for crying. And I'm going to do a couple of things for head hitting. All right, so let's go ahead and stop that. The next thing that you can do is wait until the end. So if you want to graph at the end, we do have a graph all button, and that is up here on the top on the left-hand side. It looks like a little graphing icon. So if we click on this, what you're going to see are targets with data collected. This item, these are telling you that these items are ready to be graphed. You've hit your minimum, which in most cases is going to be at least one. It's going to be at least one trial. You've run it one time, presented it one time. These items are ready to be graphed. The items that are here, targets that cannot be graphed yet, are items that have not met their minimum. So you've either not presented it once, or if you have a higher minimum criteria, then you have not presented it enough times. So if it's maybe 5, you have to present it 5 times. You need to have 5 trials worth of data. Okay, so these items cannot be graphed because they cannot be graphed with 0 trials. The items that are down here, so targets with no data collected, typically what you're going to see here are your behavior data. So crying, you'd see head hitting, the vocal stereotypy, and then of course I do have a magnitude intensity for physical aggression, which is the only one that I didn't take any data on. So these items can be graphed as 0, which in this case maybe crying just didn't occur. So in this case it did. There's actually 7 seconds worth of crying that did happen for this session. But let's say it didn't. It's not that I wasn't looking for it. I would have started the timer had he started crying, but he didn't. It just didn't occur. So in this case, we might want to graph that as a 0. So same thing here. If there was no physical aggression, we're going to say, well, the magnitude and the intensity was 0 because it just didn't happen. So you could graph that if you wanted to, or you could choose not to. But in this case, since I do have some head hitting, I'm going to go ahead and actually do a magnitude for that. So I'm going to close it. And I'm going to say my intensity of those 2, head hitting or biting, depending on which one you happen to be looking at. In this case, it's physical aggression, so I'm going to say biting. The biting was maybe at a level 1. So you could do a rating scale here in this case. And this one is maybe it's just a 1, so it was just a little nibble. Maybe he just opened his mouth and just put his teeth on me. Same thing, let's say that we say, oh, I needed to actually start running, get ready for school. Okay, so that one's in baseline. My BCBA supervisor wants me to run it, so I need to go ahead and do that. So you go ahead and take your data real quick for that as well. Okay, then you can come back. You'll see that that item has been removed from this area and is now up here and ready to be graphed. So this is really one last check before you end your session to say, did I run everything that I should have and needed to run in this session? Okay, once you say yes and you feel good about what you're going to graph, you're going to go ahead and say graph all. You're going to see down at the bottom that there is a little green bar that says the data was successfully added to however many branches it is that you graphed. Then on the right-hand side, these metrics are going to show those updated information. Okay, so in this case, this is a baseline. It's showing me that I have 1 baseline data point. It's showing me what the current phase that I'm in, what the last graph data point was, when it was graphed, and who graphed it. In the case of an intervention where prompts are used, you'll be able to see what those last 3 prompts used item was, along with how many trials were run. All right. Moving down a little bit, you're going to also see trial activity. So this area right here is just another way of checking out what your trial history is. So let's say we wanted to do stand up this time. We might do independent, an error, no response, error. You're going to see that the trial activity is changing and updating as you go. So that's really just another way to see. You can look here at the trial history. You can check your little eyeball here, or you can just go back per trial, whatever you'd like to see there. All right, moving down a little bit, you're going to see the description and instructional note template. For that, I'm going to hop back up here to folding pants. So in the description text, this is going to pull directly from the description area in your tree. Okay, so in the target. So if you have anything, any type of instruction you'd like to go ahead and pull, then you can pull that as well. Instructional note templates are the same way. So if you have your instructional note template set at the program level, this will still pull for all of the targets that are under that program. Okay, and your BTs will be able to see that as you go along. So my SD for folding pants is fold your pants. Excellent. Do I need materials? I do. What kind of materials? I need the pants, and I also need adults. Okay, so they're able to come and take a look at this stuff at any time. Where am I running it? You know, in this case, I'm running it in the center. What is my correct response definition potentially? If you've got something like that, you're going to tell your BT exactly what they need to be able to do. And then down at the bottom are the recent comments. Okay, so this area actually serves quite a few purposes depending on what your organization wants to use it for. So in some cases, this is used as team communication, which is what this particular example is showing here. So Bruce was running maybe this morning with Steve, and he said, you know, I ran folding pants, and he manned it for ball. So I created a target, which we're going to talk about in just a second, and called it ball so that I could begin tracking those novel mans. And then Peggy responded, great job, you know, keep it up. And then she said something to the other BT and said, hey, you know, do the same thing. And then Thor has seen that and said, sure, absolutely. The little number here is showing you all of the messages that have occurred within the last 48 hours. Okay, so there are 3 new items. Those are right there. If I did have more items, I'd still be able to see them, but the little icon is only going to show you within the past 2 days. You're going to also see that over here. So if you didn't know, let's say, you know, Thor hadn't seen it yet, he just came in the morning, he would see the little number 2 or the number 3 right when he opened up his session and say, oh, there's something I need to read for folding pants. He would come over to folding pants, scroll all the way to the bottom, and then read the comment, whatever it is that his BCBA or his BT partner wanted him to know. Okay, and that will also be available on the tree. So it'll be available on that target branch. So you'll be able to see it in the tree and also in the session. And you can add comments from either place. Okay, let me take just a minute and look at some questions. Can you utilize prompts when the program does not have a task analysis? Absolutely. Yep. So you can do it for % correct, % independent, any of those types of things. You would just need to tell the system what you want. I don't have anything right now. Looks like most of this is in baseline or maintenance. Yes. No, but yes, you will be able to use prompts absolutely for any of those items. If you have the criteria set up, then that's going to go ahead and just apply itself as long as you have criteria. Or you can do those prompts manually. You can add them manually. Let me see. Okay, good stuff. So now let's talk about editing existing sessions. So we do recommend that you have just 1 session per client as long as he's only receiving 1 type of service. So let's say you know, Steve is receiving speech and OT, but he's also receiving ABA. That is a case where potentially you might have 2 sessions, but those 2 disciplines would have only 1 for each of them. Okay, so there needs to be a way to add and remove items. The quick way to do that is to come over to the top. There's a little gear icon right here, and in your session options, you're going to see a bunch of settings. Okay, so this is the sharing and access is where you're going to give your BTs the access. So if we just take a look at that real quick, you're going to see all of my people who are able to see this session. Okay, and you would just add their name right up here on the top, and then it's going to be available to them the next time they go into their session area. Okay, I'm going to close that real quick. Reorder and edit branches. So this goes back to that question that I got a minute ago about being able to edit and reorder. This is where you're going to do it. So right in here, your current branches are going to be the items that are already on the data sheet. So if you need to remove something or you need to reorder, you're going to do that all right here on this first page. So let's say maybe I don't want my magnitude and intensity for physical aggression. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the little trash can button. It's going to say, are you sure you want to? Yep, I'm sure. And it's gone. Okay, so it's going to be removed from the session. If you need to reorder something, so let's say I want manding for ball to be up above because I want that to be very readily accessible. I'm going to come over to the left-hand side where you're going to get those little two-headed arrows. And all you're going to do is drag and drop. Okay, and that's going to auto-update, and it's going to appear just in that order that you need to see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that back real quick. And now let's say we want to add new items. So we're taking all of our old stuff away. We want to start putting in some new stuff. You would come up to add a branch to this session. It's going to be this top area right here. You're going to click on the little drop down, and you're going to see the program book. You're going to click on the program book. And what we're going to see here are a list of all of the branches that exist in this client's book. So if you see what you want, you know exactly what you want, you can just scroll through, click on the item that you want, or you can search for it. If you're not entirely sure, or you want to just narrow it down a little bit, you can use these filter guys over here on the right and also on the left. We recommend to go ahead and use these if you can. It is helpful to go ahead and filter by data in most cases, because that's going to give you all of your data collection branches, so all of the items that you're going to actually take the data on. Okay, so it's going to give you those guys. And then if you happen to be looking for an item that's in a certain phase, so let's say I want to see only my baseline items, it's going to show you all of the guys that have the little B next to them. And these little letters here are going to signify what the phase currently is. So in this case, that's baseline. Intervention, generalization, and maintenance are very, very similar. Okay, so let's say I want to go back to my baseline real quick, and I want to add tiger. Okay, so typically we do also recommend that you only add the items that are in blue, and that currently means that they are in progress or in the tree. Okay, so only items that are in progress. So let's go ahead and say we want to add tiger. We're just going to click, and it's going to say added. It's going to pop it straight down to the bottom. Let's say we also want to add zebra. Okay, then you can go and reorder, because what we're going to find if we scroll all the way to the bottom here is that these two tacting items are at the bottom. And if we don't want them to be at the bottom, you just drag and drop like we talked about. So maybe we'll put that right there next to the other tact. And I will just pop this one up there as well. Then we save. All right, and then now that session is the most up to date. So now our BTs that are going to be seeing Steve in the afternoon are good to go. They, you know, everything is exactly as it needs to be for them. All right, let me take one more second and look at some more questions. Do you lose data in a program book if you remove the target from the session? You do not. Absolutely not. Once it's graphed, it is a part of the book, and it's there for better or worse. Now, if you want to delete it in the tree, then you can remove it from there. But simply moving it on or off of the data sheet is not going to affect the data. Let's see. Okay. So now let's talk about the way that what we talked about in the the comments down here. So Bruce said that he was running, folding pants, and he heard a novel man. So what he did in this case was he created a branch and put it on the session that wasn't there already. Okay, so they didn't have manding for ball, but now they do. Because Steve said it, Bruce heard it, it was completely novel. The way that you're going to do that is you're going to put on some intentionally blank branches. So there's like this one down here. It says manding item 2. So let's say 4 is getting on and Steve mans for outside. He's going to say, oh, that's totally novel. I need to go ahead and track that, or I want to test it because he's manding for it quite often. So what you're going to do is just click on your branch right here that is generic. It's going to go up to the top right-hand side, and you're going to see a little pencil icon. You're going to say Edit, and then you're going to go ahead and give the branch a new name. Let's just call it Manding Outside. We're going to update the branch name, and now we have a new target for Manding Outside. And that is going to go ahead and change the name of the branch within the book. Okay, so if we were to look at the book, you would see that I have several of those items. So it says Manding item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you might write back in the description or the comments and saying, hey, Peggy, in this case, Steve manded for outside, so I used item 2 for outside. And so now we need to put in another new generic manding item, just in case he makes a novel mand for something else. So in order to do this, so in order to be able to edit the name of the branch within the session, you do need to have editable rights in the tree. Okay, so if your BTs do not have that ability, then they will not be able to do that. So what they might want to do then is just go ahead and maybe make it in the comment section, or if they have a new form type of item where they can just write it in and say these are mands that need to be added to the data sheet, you could do that as well. Okay. So any other questions about working with the new session beta before we go into how to create a new one from scratch? Okay, good stuff. All right, so let's pop back. I'm going to go ahead and end my session. I'm going to say, yes, I would like to end my session. And I'm going to go back to Learn Clinical Sessions. Okay, so there are all of my items that are available that I could click on for any of my people. But I'm going to go to Add New. All right, and then we're going to start completely from scratch here. So whatever your session name happens to be, whatever you'd like to call it, you can go ahead and just key that information in. So I might call this one Tony's session, or I could call it Tony's data sheet. Okay, or whatever it is that you want to call it. Created for, you're going to choose the client name. So in this case, it's going to be Tony. And then it's going to bring up Tony's book. So as long as the client already has a book, it's going to appear there automatically for you. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on Tony's book. And then this area is going to look very, very similar, or it should, because it is the same idea as how we add and remove new targets from an existing session. Okay, so we're going to see all of our branches. In Tony's case, he has a very, very small book. There's not a whole lot of targets, but I am going to go ahead and sort for data. And maybe I also will do things that are in baseline. Okay, so it looks like for right now, the only item that Tony has really available is first name, so I can go ahead and add that. And then it's going to ask you for 2 options. Of course, you can either create the old session or the new session. Of course, that old session is going away. So you want to just go ahead and say create session beta for now. All right, and then that is going to bring you to that new screen. or to that session screen that we needed to see. Again, if you need to add anyone, so you say this is totally new, it's not shared with anybody, you're going to go to Sessions, Sharing and Access. These people are already shared, but if I needed someone else, I'd go ahead and put them in there, and then you should be all set to go. All right, so does anybody have any other questions about using the session beta? Activating a target, yeah. So that is actually going to be back in Learn Clinical Learning Trees. So we'll just hop back over, we'll go to Tony's book real quick. Say it's in my 3-tier model. You're going to go down to your target that you want. So let's say we want to go ahead and activate last name, or we want to put that in progress. You're going to come down to View Goal. Okay, so it is going to be over on the right-hand side. You're going to see the status. You'll want to change that to In Progress. Okay, it's going to put a date. It's going to default to today's date, but you will change that if you need to. Otherwise, you can leave it. Then you'll just say Update. Now, since we're here, one really cool thing that you actually can do is to click right on the item and say Add to Session. Okay, and you're going to need to click on that little icon. If you click on the icon, say Add to Session, the system is going to say, oh, you have a data sheet. Which one do you want to put it on? You can say, oh, I want to put it onto Tony's data sheet. I want to go ahead and add that. And now that is automatically added from the branch. All right. Let me see. So the offline mode. So this is not going to look the same in offline mode. Offline mode is going to look exactly the way that it looks now. So it is going to mimic that session that will be going away. We will be looking at updating that look also in the future as well. Same thing with instructional notes. So right now that it will not be included, but it may be something that we look at in the future. All right, I will do one last call for questions. Yes. So are the behaviors set up as goals? They are. Yes. So let's look at that one real quick since we're in Tony's book. So I have something set up as behavior reduction. That's that top level. Non-compliance would maybe be my next level if I wanted to. And then I would go ahead and say, what type of non-compliance am I checking? So non-compliance in this case, I'm doing a frequency. So you would go ahead and set that up as a data branch, and it would be a goal as well. So if you print the data and you enter it in later, that is going to be manual data. So that's not going to be part of the session, but that is going to be right over here in your little Add Data section in your tree. Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. We will make this available to all of you guys, and you'll be able to watch it at a later time. So thanks again for coming. Bye-bye.